I have heard a lot about deconstruction and deconstructing, and the first time I heard the term deconstructing or deconstruction was a few years ago, probably 2022 or so. And the first time I'd heard that, it was describing people who had grown up in the faith and then had become an adult and decided that they didn't believe what they had grown up claiming that they had believed. So that can be interpreted a billion ways, of course. I think anyone who has grown up with a consistent family life with the same family would say that there were things that they believed as a child that they discovered as an adult were not accurate, or their perception wasn't accurate, or literal teaching that they sat under as a child was incorrect. So I think the term deconstruction kind of has a bad rap, but also rightfully so. So I think deconstruction, just the process of picking apart what you believe, is important, and deconstructing being an end result, I don't think is the best description, at least for me. So I don't know if I would say that I deconstructed or went through deconstruction, or if people would say that about me. Maybe they would, and maybe that's true, but I think the more accurate term for me now would be a season of reconstructing and reconstruction. And it's been a 5-6 year process of learning about myself and learning about my past and learning about world history and creation history and anything I can learn, basically, to stretch my belief and undo some wrong belief. And every step of the way, reconstruction was the goal, but deconstruction always had to happen first. So I felt like every time I came to a place of needing to grow or learn, there was a process of taking down something else. There was a deconstruction or an unthinking or an unlearning, which I guess is familiar to most people. I think I remember when I was a lot younger, and the first time I had a tennis coach, he said, you've got to unlearn all your bad habits. I grew up in a family of tennis players, so I had been playing tennis for a long time, but he was the first coach that I had after playing for years. So I think that process is applicable to anything. Anytime we grow to a new level of expertise or understanding, we have to be humble enough to realize that some of the things that we considered to be irreversible truths might in actuality be a misinterpretation. So I feel like I did that. I went through the process of at first asking really the question that Eve asked, did he really say that? And I think did God really say that question turned into, I don't know. And then for me, it all kind of fell apart. I just felt like, well, if I don't know that, then what do I really know? Which actually was really good, because if I took it all away, it gave God a clean slate to build something back. And really what I found was what was built originally was what I had built with my understanding and piecemealed parts of different teachers and, Bible teachers and preachers and really amazing people that got me to the point that I realized I needed to start to develop some things on my own. and not just copy pasting, kind of like plagiarizing their faith a little bit. Like I had just taken paragraph from different people and just thrown it all together and said, okay, this is what I believe. And I feel like the Lord was just like, that's just not how it works. You can learn from them, and you can determine what I want you to believe. And so that's eventually where I got, and along the way have kind of become a writer. And I love to write, mainly because I'm surprised at what I write. It's like way beyond what I could sit down and articulate myself. So it just kind of helps me process what the Lord is teaching me and may want me to share with others. But along the way, I've also learned that he doesn't want me to share everything with everybody. I definitely can be prone to judgment, that if the Lord has convicted me of something in my life that's not right for me, I have definitely had my share of times to go and push that on other people and just kind of say like, well, this is what the Lord had told me, so I know it's going to be what he tells you. And I think I'm just learning that's just not how he works. Thankfully, he's working on the things that he knows I need the most right now. And 10 years from now, those things may change. So it would be silly for me to think that he doesn't do that with everybody else. And I don't think that I've ever had a person come to me and say, hey, I've noticed this about your life, and I think that you need to deal with it. And me said, oh, you know what? You're right. I do. It really hasn't happened that way. Really, what's drawn me to the Lord has been the kindness of the Lord, to be kind to me when I'm not doing something that a faithful follower of Christ might be needing to do, but the kindness that has drawn me to get to that place years and years and years later. And I think in this stage of life, that's what he is challenging me, that my job is not to point out what God might want to be working on with someone. My job is to encourage them in the way that God's made them and loves them. And for me, that's been the reconstruction process for me too. Just in thinking through the best way to articulate that, I've kind of written some thoughts. So reconstruction, deconstructing is good. Rethinking, challenging my beliefs, asking God what he wants me to know, that is good. Deconstruct what was built by man to allow and make way for new life. Reconstruction, not a remodel, not a renovation, but a complete reconstruction. In Luke 5:36 through 39, it talks about new and old, and it makes me think about being made new. So in 36 through 39, this is when the teachers, like the leading teachers, are asking questions about Jesus. And these are the Pharisees kind of questioning, why do John the Baptist's disciples fast, but your disciples don't fast? And kind of trying to like trip him up with a loophole, or pointing out something that he's not doing. So he told him a couple of parables. And one of the parables from Luke 5:36 is where it starts. He says, he also told them in parable, no one tears a piece from a new garment and puts it on an old garment. If he does, he will tear the new, and the piece from the new will not match the old. And no one puts new wine into old wineskins. If he does, the new wine will burst the skins, and it will be spilled, and the skins will be destroyed. But new wine must be put into fresh wineskins. And no one, after drinking old wine, desires new, for he says, the old is good. So I thought this was interesting, because in one category, he talks about new being applied to an old garment. So a new piece of fabric being applied to an old garment. And then in the second part, he talks about putting new wine into an old garment. And so in both cases, he kind of explains that it ruins them both. The old is ruined. So if you put the new wine in an old wineskin, it won't work. And if you put old wine in a new wineskin, it won't work, and it'll all be ruined. So I like the idea of a deconstruction and a reconstruction, because both things are new. And I love that he says that the old has been made new. It's been renewed. So I just like the application of that for me is that applying new to something old destroys both. Being made new again and again is what Jesus will do. He will reconstruct us. He will tear down what was built by man, completely destroy it. In its place, he will reconstruct something built by him and him alone, to remind me of his truth and the new life he's given me and the way that he wants me to go. So this summer we went to Honduras, and it was an amazing trip. But one of the things that we were given as a gift with the people that were wanting to say thank you for us coming and spending some time with them and getting to know them, and encouraging them that Jesus loves them and sees them and is working in really powerful ways through their faithfulness. We went to a coffee place, and so the place that we went to was a business where they help local farmers produce their coffee, and they showed us the whole process from when the plant is ready, and then the washing of the coffee and the drying of the coffee and all of that. But we came home with a lot of coffee from a lot of different farms, which is good because I love coffee. But one of the things that I love about it is the smell, and of course that coffee beans have to be ground. They have to be deconstructed, and then the coffee has to be brewed or reconstructed. So you can't just take the coffee and put hot water on it without deconstructing the bean. Whether you're a K-cup, coffee pot, French press, pour over, whatever, none of that can be done with a whole coffee bean. It always has to be deconstructed. So you can reconstruct it countless ways, but reconstructing something in the place of the deconstruction is what makes it coffee. You could have just the grounds, and you could have just the deconstruction, but then to leave it there wastes the whole deconstruction process. So I just wonder, like, if God in his grace and his goodness and his kindness to draw me back to a place of reconstructing with him, how many people are just in the deconstruction and have just believed the lie that they're just meant to be coffee grounds, and really they're meant to be the highest of end of a reconstructed, beautiful, delicious, amazing, vibrant gift to not only to God, but to God's people who have deconstructed or are deconstructing or really yearn for reconstruction. And that's my hope. That's my hope for me, and that's my hope for all the people that have gone through that process and believe the lie that it means that they're not, that what they once believed or knew isn't true or didn't count or anything. I think if a student learns multiplication, they don't go back and say, well, addition was never true, because this is more true. I don't think that that's how it works. So I think oftentimes God in his goodness allows us to be where we are, and then when we're ready to listen to the coach and have a new standard, then he allows us to take that off. But I think in our culture and as humans, we are prone more to add on just to hold really tightly to what we felt like he told us, which he might have, or what a person told us that we accepted as the truth from the Lord. And we want to add on top of that. And that's a remodel or a renovation, but it's not a reconstruction. And, just like coffee, reconstructing something in the place of the deconstruction is what makes it great. That's where goodness and joy and kindness and all of that come from. Staying with the grounds is a waste of the process. It's a waste of the product. It's a waste of everything that came before it. And I think sometimes, especially if some of our past has been painful, we think the best way to punish the past is to ignore it or to completely throw it out. But if we throw out the past of deconstruction and coffee, then we never end up with cup. So I think that doesn't work either. But staying with the grounds until the coffee is made is sometimes a wait, and sometimes uncomfortable and painful, and sometimes it just takes other people, which the many podcasts that I've listened to, and just incredible Bible teachers and people who have questioned their own faith and come to a place that they are more sure than ever that they believe what I believe, is really what brought me to the place to reconstruct. So the difference I feel like in the deconstruction of coffee, grounds can be thrown out and maybe something would go in its place. I don't know. I'm not a horticulturist or scientist enough to know, but I do know that in life, if we deconstruct our faith, then something's going to be put there. It could be, I think in scripture, we hear a lot about altars, that in Exodus, when the Lord did something amazing, they would build an altar to the Lord and honor him and worship him. And the altar would be a reminder of the thing that he did. So in Exodus 30, they built an altar for the Lord, for them to just continue to worship and remind them of the great things that he did. But in Exodus 32:5, they built an altar of the golden calf because they, again, I think I recently have wondered if really it wasn't so much that they were impatient or not honoring God, but maybe they were just terrified that what they believed was wrong. And so they wanted something else to believe. So they made something else to believe. And in our culture these days, often I feel like believing nothing is what's kind of toted around of, you can't love anybody well if you ascribe to a certain truth that isolates them. So I think sometimes what's elevated as the best way is to believe nothing so that everyone is included. And I just think that's an altar of itself that we've resurrected, or erected rather, in the place of what Jesus resurrected. That, we don't have to have an altar anymore, but we put them there all the time. And even our refusal to reconstruct a belief, and ask him, like, what do you want me to believe? What do you want me to know? What do you want me to learn? I think there are a lot of people that would get a lot of answers from that instead of turning their back and deciding I'll never ask them another question again, because of an image of God that they were given by someone else. So anyway, I just think if you have deconstructed or are deconstructing or know anything about the process of deconstruction. I know what it feels like to be disappointed, to be confused, to be uncertain, and a lot of times where that's led me is a boldness in lostness, like just feeling like it's better to be lost, and I can be bold to show those Christians a thing or two. And it didn't turn out well. So I'm really grateful for the reconstruction process, and I don't know if I'll ever record another one of these. I don't know why I'm recording this one. I know I've written too many blogs to count, and I know that for some reason I don't need to resist the pulling to write and record. So there might be more. But if you have questions or anything, you can comment. But hopefully we'll get to talk some more. Happy reconstructing.